So welcome to this fourth video in the series where we're going to be discussing some of the important questions that came out of the model that I've been showing you. And I'm joined today by Kendall Garnett. She's a junior here at Bucknell, and she's going to be asking me some questions that came up to her as she was reviewing the information that I've shared with you. Kendall, why don't you first tell us a little bit about yourself and your involvement in different activities here on campus?
Hi, I'm Kendall. I'm a biology major and Spanish minor. I am a Bio 205 TA and also Bio 206 TA. And I'm also Vice President of Administration for Pan-Hellenic Council. So that's probably how you already know me. Yeah.
So Kendall, what kinds of questions came up as you were considering these scenarios that I showed in the videos?
I think my first question was, can someone who's recovered from COVID-19, should they continue to practice precautions such as social distancing and mask wearing?
That's a really important question, and I think that there's a couple of considerations. The first is that we're still trying to get a firm grip on how long someone might be contagious, that you might be asymptomatic, you might have recovered from the disease, but you might still be able to spread it to others. The second important consideration is that it might be possible to get reinfected with this virus. It still seems unlikely based on the best immunology that we have to date, but we can't rule that out at this point.
If most students on campus are young and likely to recover, then why is herd immunity such a bad idea?
Yeah, that's a really difficult question, because it would certainly be great if we got to a situation where almost everyone on campus was already immune to it. And that, of course, is the hope of having a vaccine available. But one of the real concerns we have is that we don't fully understand all of the long-term complications of getting infected. And that even someone who's asymptomatic while they have the active infection might still have long-term consequences. It's recently shown that there's damage to the heart tissue in people who have recovered from COVID-19. There's also well-known lung damage that has been seen in many patients. And so even young people that are very healthy can still have very serious infections and also have long-term complications.
If we keep the number of cases below 1%, will we be able to lessen restrictions?
That's a really good question. And that is exactly what I hope we see here at Bucknell. We have the ability here, because we're in the so-called Bucknell bubble, to test everyone and isolate people who need to be isolated safely, quarantine people when we're not sure whether they're infected. And we could, using these restrictions, very effectively control the spread of the disease. And in that case, we would be in a situation where we could start to lessen those restrictions, and we would be able to have gatherings larger than we currently are able to do. We might be able to at least have outdoor concerts, all kinds of fun things that we typically have here on campus. And so we're hoping to be able to lessen the restrictions as time goes on.
If there is an outbreak, should students be sent home or kept at school for 10 days?
So here we can see the third scenario that I showed during the third video. And it's the intervention that we have where we're not quite strong enough to get R below 1. And in this scenario, we have about sometime in September, we have the number of infectious people on campus crossing our 1% threshold. And you can see that as time goes by, in mid-October, we've had a really widespread outbreak in this scenario. So in this case, in this type of growth rate, you can see that we have quite a long window between when we have the ability to detect that we have a lot of spread going on campus, and when the outbreak gets large enough that we would need to send everyone home because we need to, we can't quarantine enough people here on campus. We know what our isolation capacity is, and if those beds are getting filled up, or we start sending people to the hospital, then we need to send everyone home. And that window in this scenario is over 2 weeks long. If, on the other hand, the spread is happening more rapidly than this, like in the original baseline scenario, we don't have a very long window in that scenario between when it crosses 1% and when the outbreak is out of control. If we detect rapid spread on campus, we'd have to send everyone home more quickly. Another scenario where we'd have to send people home earlier rather than later is if the testing lag gets to be too long. And this is a real concern because whenever we have the test results today, that's reflecting what the spread on campus was from some previous time point. And if that time point is only 48 hours, like we hope, then we have a pretty accurate idea. The lag there isn't so important. If, on the other hand, we're talking about a 7 to 10 day lag between when we're getting the test results and when that test was actually performed, then we have to be much more cautious about when we send everyone home because we don't know how much this infection has spread on campus in the meantime.
That kind of leads into my next question of if testing is plausible for the 3,000 plus people on campus.
That is really an important question. And we have the capacity that through the company that we've contracted with for that number of tests to test every student on campus on average every 10 days. And that capacity was worked out this summer during contract negotiations with the company. But since that time, we've seen a nationwide shortage of certain parts of the testing materials. And so, and of course, if we can't resolve those testing materials shortages, then that might change this calculation. So what we have to do is we have to keep in mind those three things: the availability of testing and how long it takes to get those test results back, the rate of growth on campus, that is R, and the threshold that we're going to use. And so as testing gets more and more delayed, we have to lower the threshold accordingly. And how much we lower that threshold is determined by how rapidly the infection is spreading at that time on campus. And so all three of those things kind of go into a consideration when we're making that call.
Can the hospitals around Bucknell handle the influx of patients that could come if there is an outbreak?
So if we were to have a large outbreak here on campus, we still would not fill up the capacity of the hospitals. But of course, if that were part of a larger outbreak in this whole region, then we could see that the capacity would be insufficient. Of course, that's true throughout the United States, that we don't have enough excess capacity in our hospitals to handle everyone getting sick at once. And you'll remember back in March when we're all talking about flattening the curve, that was the whole goal there. We do have to worry about our community here in the Lewisburg area because we do know that it's now one of the higher infection rates in all of Pennsylvania at this particular moment in time. And so we are concerned about how the community and Bucknell interact with each other and the people who work in this community.
How often should testing occur and who should be tested if it's impossible to test everyone?
That's an important question, and it's a big part of the model that we've adopted here at Bucknell. We are trying to test about 10% of the students every day. And that will allow us to both provide a level of safety because everyone will get tested regularly, but also will allow us to detect spread of the infection on campus that's asymptomatic. So if we only adopted a scenario where we were testing people that showed symptoms, we would always be at least 3 or 4 days behind the spread of the infection, and we would miss entirely asymptomatic carriers. That's why here at Bucknell, we've chosen to test everyone who shows symptoms, but also to test a surveillance testing of everyone on campus, including faculty and staff. Will be tested every 14 days on average, and the students will be tested every 10 days on average.
Pennsylvania is requiring arrivals from certain states to quarantine upon arrival. Should Bucknell be following this rule?
That was an important decision. If you don't have testing in place to screen everyone before they arrive, Bucknell chose a more aggressive approach, which is to require those 2 negative tests, which I know are a bit of a problem for some people here on campus or arriving on campus. But the strategy of having screening tests is an alternative to that quarantining.
Thank you. I think that was it.